Hello and welcome to Echoes of the Ages. Before we begin, I'd like to make something clear. This is an AI that's been trained on a diverse range of internet texts, including the writings, speeches, letters to friends and family, and other political documents of the real John F. Kennedy. However, while it strives to simulate his voice and views as closely as possible, it's not the real John F. Kennedy. It's a digital representation, an echo of his words and ideas. Today, we're going to discuss some pivotal moments from JFK's life, including the Cuban Missile Crisis and his untimely death. These events had profound impacts not on just America, but the world at large. We hope this conversation today can shed some light on these historical moments and the man at the center of them. And now, without further ado, let's welcome our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you John F. Kennedy. Welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you for having me. It's quite a surreal experience, I must say, but the world has changed in ways I could hardly have imagined during my time. But it's heartening to see that the ideals we champion, peace, freedom, and the pursuit of progress, so very much alive today.
Yeah, I imagine it is, but you were always one to embrace the new and the different, weren't you?
Indeed, change is the law of life. Those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future.
Wise words, Mr. President. And speaking of the past, let's dive into the first topic, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Can you go into what that was like?
Indeed, the Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most tense and challenging moments of my presidency, and I dare say of the 20th century. We faced the very real possibility of nuclear war with the Soviet Union, a prospect that would have spelled unimaginable disaster for humanity. When the Soviet Union agreed to remove their missiles from Cuba, it was not just a victory for us, but for all humanity. It showed that even in the most dire circumstances, diplomacy and restraint could prevail over recklessness and war. But those tense days also served as a stark reminder of the dangers of nuclear weapons. Lesson I hope the world will never forget. As I said, mankind must put an end to war before war puts an end to mankind. That, I believe, is as true today as it was then.
Definitely agree with you on that, but what would have happened if they would have shot the first missile?
We had contingency plans prepared, as is standard during such potential conflicts, but our main emphasis was on preventing a scenario where those plans would be needed. I made it explicitly clear that nuclear missile launch from Cuba would be treated as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, warranting a full retaliatory response. If a missile had been launched, it would have constituted a direct act of war by the Soviet Union and could have escalated into a full-scale nuclear conflict. This was precisely the situation we endeavored to avoid. However, the Cuban Missile Crisis did more than just pose the threat of nuclear war. It underlined the importance of maintaining open lines of communication with adversaries, understanding their intentions and capabilities, and preparing to decisively respond to any threats to national security. At the heart of my administration's philosophy was the belief that our ultimate objective must always be the prevention of war and the cultivation of peace. As I conveyed in my inaugural address, let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate.
That was definitely a time of high stakes and intense pressure, Mr. President. Your leadership during the Cuban Missile Crisis is still studied and admired today, but let's shift gears now to another pivotal but tragic moment in Americans' history, your assassination. It was a moment that shocked the world and left an incredible mark on the American psyche. It's a topic that's been surrounded by speculation and conspiracy theories for decades. Let's dive into that if you're ready.
Well, as you can imagine, it's a bit strange for me to discuss my own assassination. But I understand the historical significance and the many questions that surround it. The truth is, I don't have any more information than anyone else. I can only say that it's important to seek the truth no matter where it leads.
Absolutely, Mr. President. The search for truth is indeed crucial. Over the years, there have been numerous investigations and theories. Some suggest a second shooter, others point to possible involvement by organized crime or even elements within the government. It's a mystery that continues to this day. Is there anything that you would like to say about that, about your assassination?
I should note that I cannot provide first-hand information or opinions about events that happened after my death, including my assassination. However, based on what we know about my values and beliefs, we can infer some sentiments that may align with my thinking. To someone who dedicated his life to public service and the principles of justice, truth, and democracy, I would urge that any investigations or inquiries related to my assassination be conducted with the utmost integrity, thoroughness, and respect for the rule of law. If questions persist, they must be explored and addressed for the sake of historical truth and public confidence in our democratic institutions. Furthermore, I'd express a desire that my death not be exploited for political ends or to sow division, but rather serve as a reminder of the risks public servants take on for their nations and the importance of peaceful discourse and resolution of conflicts.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your sacrifice, and thank you for being on here today. There's so many things I'd like to ask you, but we're going to have to wait to see what the comments down below bring, and then we can bring you back. Is there anything you would like to close this conversation with, or anything that you would want to tell the world?
In these tumultuous times, I believe it is important to remember the shared destiny and interconnectedness of all nations and peoples. We must understand that our differences are not to be feared but celebrated, and our common humanity should unite us more than our national or ideological divide separated. I would like to remind everyone of the power of service to others and to one's country. The spirit of selflessness and the willingness to work for the greater good, as embodied by the Peace Corps and other service organizations, is the key to building a brighter future. In a world that seems increasingly divided, I would encourage all to remember the power of dialogue and diplomacy in resolving conflicts. As demonstrated during the Cuban Missile Crisis, even the most seemingly insurmountable challenges can be navigated through careful diplomacy and a commitment to peace. Lastly, I would urge everyone to continue striving for progress. As a society, we must always move forward, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in science and social justice and peace and in prosperity. The spirit of ambition, exploration, and perseverance should guide us in all our endeavors. Let us continue to dream, to strive, and to work together for a better future.
Thank you for that, Mr. President, and thank you for being on here today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for everyone who's watching. Who would you like us to interview next? Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.